question, but something that I get asked about a lot. And so I'm just curious what your take is on it, because anytime I meet somebody whose background and expertise is in strength and conditioning, this is what I love to ask. And it's all about, and we didn't get into a ton related to recovery, but I know that this is obviously something that is key to performance. I'm curious for you, Tim, like if you had kind of one practical suggestion or tool or one favorite go-to for general recovery for sports performance, like what's your go-to?
Sleep, drink water, eat, like pretty much. And I think that's something we look at it habits. Like,
Yep.
what are we gonna do every day of the year to do that? And then you
Mm-hmm.
can go in a bunch of different other modalities, but I like it all those modalities individually, like a training input. Like if I'm gonna do sauna, if I'm gonna do cold, okay, that's a training, that's an input to me, and that's something that we need to have a marker of intensity, a marker of progression, some sort of impact on the general system. And if I can evaluate that relatively to other things, then great. But overall, if we're sleeping, if we're drinking water, if we're eating vegetables or eating in general vegetables and just good amount of food, and then having a really good quality of food, and then I would
Mm-hmm.
put in sunlight exposure as well. Like these like basic things that we should
Sure.
be doing every single day. And then depending on where you're at, like motivation is a ebb and flow thing, right? And like people come out hot in
Mm-hmm.
January. They're like, all right, right, I'm ready to get my infrared sauna. I'm ready to get my cold water immersion. I'm ready to do my meditation. Okay, good. What's that going to look like in a week from now? Like, what's that going to look like that from a month from now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just stuff that we have to add to our day. Both of you and I, we have our businesses, we have our
Yeah.
kids, and like, that's the same thing for everyone else we work with. And everyone else probably listening to this podcast is like, if you add the stuff, it's subtracting you from something else. Can you subtract that consistently
Yeah.
or not? But you can always sleep, drink water, eat more food, or eat good food, and then get plenty of sunlight. And like after that, you titrate up certain things, or that comes at the expense of something else. So I would just say do that is my go-to recovery. And more times than not, it's just about that's the biggest limiting factor for most people is like they're not doing that. And they're supplementing their lack of
Yeah.
ability to do that with stuff that's, obviously like maybe a little faster track and, a little bit higher threshold or just more interesting. Like, damn, I really want infrared sauna in my house, but I know I probably don't have time to do it in a whole lot of level anyway, but I'm going to get it one day. That's my
Right.
vision board, right? If you remember The Secret, like I got my vision board with my
Nice.
garage and my
Yeah.
infrared sauna and my cold water immersion, and I'm gonna have that one day. That's what I'm working towards. But
Yeah.
I know when that time comes, that way I'm gonna get the most out of that is if I'm building off those other basic habits of just sleeping, drinking
Yep.
water, eating, and then getting plenty of natural sunlight, and then I can add in that. But that'll come.
Yeah.
So I would say that
Yeah.
right there, like let me evaluate that first and
Yeah.
foremost. And if you're smoking that, great. Let's talk about some of these modalities and these recovery things. And I got to meditate.
Sure.
I got to journal. I got to breathe. I could do all these things. Awesome. I'm happy. Yes. Let's do that. But if we're not doing these basic things, then I'm going to start there. I'm going to stay there. I know it's boring and redundant, but they get. I usually find that's the biggest limiting factor to what we want in the first place.
Yeah, Tim, it's the consistent response that I hear from every high level performer and coach is basics before any of these other type of so-called hacks. It's not that to say utilizing cold therapy like a cold plunge or cryotherapy or heat exposure like a sauna or something similar to that. It's not to say that those are ineffective strategies, but it's not that effective if you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night and that 4 hours is fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's these basic things that we can do that have been published in hundreds of thousands of studies, sleep being like the primary one that I get from most high level coaches and athletes. It's doing those basic things that really set the foundation, and then we can build on top of
Yeah.
that. And it's again one of the things that I hear just consistently. And you mentioning sleep is kind of like the number one. I know you mentioned water and nutrition, which are obviously other things that we have to do. I think sleep it's one that goes acknowledged by a lot of people, but then a lot of people don't prioritize it even still. And so I think
Yeah.
that again, it's just the low hanging fruit that's out there that you have to prioritize. And it's funny because I've worked with a lot of young athletes who love to stay up and they love to party and play video games, but they also have strength and conditioning that starts at 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m., and
Mm-hmm.
they went to bed at 1, 2 a.m. I'm like, do you think you're going to optimize your level of performance by having these consistent patterns. And sometimes they can kind of get away with it, but then as you age, like that window shrinks to like basically minimal or none.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about kind of these basics before hacks. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
stating that.
On the note of sleep, and this is
Yeah.
the a point of like testing and tracking, but we track sleep quantity before every training session. And, we probably have about 30% of our clientele wear wearables, Whoop Aura, maybe one day Hanu. And we're looking at it from the context of there's a threshold that
Yeah.
people need to cross when they go into that. And sleep anxiety is a real thing. And when I see a lot of people omit or skip the sleep quantity number, and that tells me everything I need to know. It's when they don't want to report it. It's when they're not sleeping enough. When they're doing well, everyone wants to tell you how good they're doing.
Right.
Like, I got 8 hours, I feel great. When it's 3 or 4, whether it's like I got 2 kids and they're up all night, probably not gonna. I don't want to report that. Like my body composition's going bad because I ate like crap last week. Like I'm not gonna be like gung ho. Let's see where I'm at. Like I get it. It's human nature. But
Right.
you're telling me the omission of that metric tells me everything I need to know, and that's where I need to focus. And it's like the natural instincts, like, yeah, man, I really want to get a wearable to really, track this stuff. Like, the problem is you're not motivated to sleep. You're thinking that's going to motivate you to sleep. In fact, it's just going to be more illuminating as to what you're not doing. So let's just go over strategies before that. And just like cold water, like, I think the threshold of amount of time in a given week is a really important metric, but I have a lot of people with a lot of disposable income, and they could buy a cold water immersion, a couple $1,000 one, put it in their house and have a room allocated to it. But the first thing I asked them is like, have you ever tried taking a cold shower? Like we live right by the Pacific Ocean. Have you ever just gone into the ocean just in, first thing in the morning, go over there and just try to walk in? Like all this stuff's at our disposal. Like, I don't really want to do that. Like, well, then why are you going to spend 10 grand on a cold water, saltwater immersion tub? Like, you're not going to do it with it free and cheap and it's easy. Like, that's a way bigger jump. So, like, and I want everyone to track this stuff and get all these modalities. I think they really genuinely help. If someone has a Peloton bike, I'm like, you're doing the recovery or zone 2 workouts on there, like every other day or every day if you can. I want you doing that. Like, get the money's worth. But you don't need to do a whole lot of high intensity interval or glycolytic work. Like, you're balancing the stuff. We got all that covered in here. But like, when I have this disposable income or that just inclination that's going to push me over the hump and get me to where I want to be, like I start off with very simple, like litmus tests of like, take a cold shower, or, hey, go for a long walk, or, hey, go to bed at 9. And like, if you're tossing and turning for 2 hours, that's okay. Let's try to get that down to an hour and a half tomorrow. Like, shut off the lights, remove blue light, get some reading in at 9 after that, whatever it is. But like before you get the wearable, just do some basic things that you can do right now and see if you're ready for it, because it's not going to change that behavior until you start to get to the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. We all have good intentions about what we think will help us out. Thanks for listening to the Hanu Health Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. This podcast would not happen without listeners and supporters like you. And the best way to support us and the show is to head on over to iTunes and provide us with a 5-star review. This helps us reach others and spread the good word of breathing and stress resiliency. If we read your 5-star review on air, please reach out to podcast@hanuhealth.com with your name and mailing address, and we will send you some sweet Hanu gear. Until next time, breathe better and stress less.